Hello and welcome to On the Other Hoof. You join us ahead of one of my favourite weekends of racing. We have Haydock with some good action with the Lancashire Oaks Group 2 and also one of the best handicaps of the season with the Old Newton Cup. We also have some very, very good action down at Sandown. They have listed action with a good fillies race, the Distaff, or the Coral Distaff, it's going to be called this year anyway. And then the Group 1 Coral Eclipse, won last year by Muckadram. This year we have a more formidable lineup with Golden Horn, the Derby winner, lining up as an odds-on favourite. But the Grey Gatsby, who was unlucky at Royal Ascot not too long ago, lines up against Golden Horn and will look to decrown the Epsom Derby winner from earlier this season. Joining me tonight, we only have Adam Webb, I should say. Good evening, Adam.
Good evening.
Slightly drier than you were at this time yesterday.
Oh yeah. I was at Haydock yesterday and I got absolutely drowned. Thankfully, the people from Betfred gave me a lovely poncho to keep dry, and it was used wisely. I'll say that.
Yeah, I can't imagine you in that. I can't imagine you wearing that. Are you off to Haydock tomorrow? Or?
I'm not. No, I won't be off to Haydock tomorrow. I went yesterday because it was a quiet day, and to pay tribute to a horse that we're going to talk about in a second, I'll let you lead in with that.
Yeah, and that horse, I'm sure everyone now knows that we learned of the untimely passing of the legendary and superb steeplechaser that was Corto Star this week. Adam, we were talking, pretty much all week about Corto Star. He's one of the horses that really, for me anyway, his battles with Denman really made me want to go into a career in racing and get more invested into the sport. He's just a fantastic horse. He was a headline grabber. He went out there every single time, 5 King Georges, 4 Betfair chases, even 2 Tingle Creeks he can throw on top of a couple of Gold Cups as well. It was just a superb horse over a long period of time, expertly handled by Paul Nicholls, and one that we've never seen one better in our lifetime. And to be honest, I'd be surprised if we do see a steeplechaser better than him in our lifetime.
I fully agree with everything you've just said there. I mean, 5 King Georges after 4, and when he got beat by Long Run and the end of the 2010-11 season, I didn't think he'd come back. I thought his time at the top was over, but then he came back in the Betfair Chase and put his younger rivals to the sword in a sublime performance, one of my favourite racing memories it will be. And then in the King George, you were there that day, and he did the exact same. He jumped Long Run into the ground, stole lengths at his fences. That's at the age of 11 as well. It's just, he was such an incredible racehorse, and I remember his British debut as well. I mentioned it to you earlier in the week, but he went to Newbury in a novice chase, and I think Ruby Walsh dubbed it half an arcle because you had Foreman in there, you had Marble Arch in there, Locksmith, all decent horses. And he effectively won on the bridle, and he got off and said that this horse is a potential star of the future. And we obviously know what happened through his career. He had a few blips, fell at Exeter, fell in the Queen Mother. And I think for me, the first time we saw the potential superstar was when he absolutely routed B4 Salmon and Kingscliff in the Betfair Chase. His first go at 3 miles, people doubted whether he'd get the trip, and boy did he stick 2 fingers up to anybody that doubted he'd get 3 miles. But then his quality, he was as good at 2 as he was at 3. He then dropped back in trip 2 weeks later and won the Tingle Creek in a common canter, beating a champion chase winner and an Arkle winner.
Ruby Walsh has always said throughout his career that a good horse can win at any distance. And every time he says that, I feel that he's referring to Corto. That can win at 2, he can win at 3, it doesn't really matter, it all comes alike to him.
Exactly. And then a month later, same month, but he won the King George, again in practically a common canter, beating Exotic Dancer, who's another horse that's in that era that deserves mentioning as well. So, but his career is just incredible. And one little point I will make about Corto, I wasn't completely convinced Cheltenham was his track, but he still would win there. It's his class. He could do anything you wanted. Good ground, heavy ground, 2 miles, 3 miles.
That's the thing. In a racehorse, you rarely get the class mixed in with the guts, tenacity and determination to win. Corto had absolutely everything. A lot of people have been mentioning in the 2008 Gold Cup when Denman beat him, he still had to hold off Neptune Collonges in second, despite being absolutely out on his feet. He was beaten from the top of the hill by Denman, but he still stayed on for second, even though he could see a stablemate in front of him. And he battled so hard that day. It just showed how willing he was to give absolutely everything he's got on the race course. He probably wasn't even 100% fit that day after a fall leading up to the race at home. But for him to battle against Neptune Collonges, who was a very good horse in his own right, that really, I think, cemented his place in a lot of racing people's hearts for the foreseeable future anyway. But then he came out after that and showed us just how classy he was as well.
Yeah, that Gold Cup, I thought he was beaten earlier than that. I thought Denman had him at least not cooked within a circuit to go, but you could see the early signs when Denman took it up that he made the mistake to, not the fence with a circuit to go, the fence before, but that's where Denman took it up. And Ruby was just niggling at him, to try and keep in touch with Denman, who just turned on the taps and left Neptune Collonges, who was the other horse I'd say in that era. I always have them as the trio. I can't forget Neptune because he came out and won the Grand National Cup of years in 2012. So it's just that it was lovely to see on Twitter this week the emotions, the outpourings of grief, sadness, but all of them happy memories as well. Mostly I saw were his Betfair Chase win in 2011 and his King George, but people remembered other memories about him. His 36-length romp in the 2009 King George. They went a brutal gallop. Nakarat, God bless his soul as well, he took them along a real gallop. And you had a Gold Cup winner in Imperial Commander who made a bad mistake early on. And one by one, they fell by the wayside. And here comes Corso Star. He jumped brilliantly on that occasion. And I think Lydia Hislop mentioned it earlier. I think it was Jonathan Neeson who wrote the Racing Post comments. And if you read it, it says something like, settled in midfield, went second, 12th, took it up, magnificent. And that's all you can say about that performance. It's just, he's one of them horses that we're never going to see again, I don't think. If we do, we'll be very lucky. And him, Denman, they're the two horses that I will always associate as greats from my era. I mean, you got Istabrack as well. I'd put Hurricane Fly in that bracket as well. So there's not many horses that go to that height, but he did and toppled them and broke records as well. He was, I think, unbelievable.
Now I can finally draw a line under the golden era of steeplechasing. I know that they were retired in the first place, Denman and Corso Star, but now, even with Long Run going into the 100 Chasers next year, or supposedly anyway, I think it really does draw that line under how spoiled we were and how how amazing our 3-mile chasers were at that point. Denman, Long Run, Corso Star. You could probably throw Neptune Collonges into that argument as well. We really were treated to some spectacular staying chasers then, but now that we have lost Corto, it does seem that golden era has completely gone now.
It does. And one more thing I will mention, he was the first horse, he broke the record books in the sense that he was the first and only horse to ever regain his Cheltenham Gold Cup. He could have easily, after that 2008 Gold Cup, lost heart in the game. I mean, Denman destroyed him, but to come back from that, I mean, he also went to Aintree and got beat by Arvic, where Ruby even said the other day to Lydia, he said, I wish I could ride that race again, I went too soon, which tells you that he still thinks about it. It's just an interesting thing for a jockey. He means,
Ruby doesn't let himself off anything.
He doesn't, but with him especially, he's just... I mean, both of us will admit, we were Denman. If it was the match between them, we were always on Denman's side.
Oh yeah. But the thing with Team Denman and Team Corto always annoyed me slightly, because strictly speaking, I was Team Denman, but above all, I was a horse racing fan that wanted to see a really good race. But before we move on, my favourite memory of Corto, everyone has to share their favourite memory, was his final King George. I was blessed to see him there on that day. I backed Long Run, but every single stride of the way I cheered on Corto. He was absolutely magnificent that day. I think not his best performance, but one of them, well up there as well. There was also his last win before being pulled up in the Cheltenham Gold Cup, which was his last run in the end. But he was absolutely superior to everything that day. He jumped Long Run into the ground. He stayed on brilliantly. And I think at the end of the day, he was running very much on empty, but his 5th King George will be something that sticks with me until I'm an old age pensioner in horse racing anyway. That was one of the best days. The best atmospheres as well came at Kempton. Could you believe it? I've ever experienced on a race course after attending a few Cheltenham festivals. But that day is something I will never forget. Did you get to see Corto in the flesh winning anyway?
No, I only saw him in the flesh at Cheltenham last year. That's the only time I ever saw him in the flesh, which was a shame. And I was glad that I did get to see him. I mean, when Denman had his scare, I never saw him in the flesh. And I was really scared that I was going to kick myself. It's sort of like, why didn't you go and see them when they were racing? But obviously, I was very young. I would have been the only person going racing that I'd have known, and it had been. I felt at the time it was weird going on your own, but turns out it's not. You can go on your own. You probably bump into a few people and have a great day anyway. My favourite Corso memory, I'm going to go a bit left. Well, I say very left field actually. I'm going to go with something a little different. Him and Denman turning for home in the 2011 Gold Cup, head and head, the match that we wanted for a good 4 years, only for Long Run to come and spoil the party. But going to the second last, you were willing both of them home, even though I backed Denman that day. I was willing them both home. Here comes Long Run. I thought, oh, here we go. Here comes the young pretender to steal the crown. But that is one of the finest horse races, I beg your pardon, that I've seen in my lifetime. And you made the point just then that era of 3 Mile Golden Chasers have gone. Next season, the new guard comes.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that they can provide some of the memories that Denman and Corto did.
Yeah,
so,
no,
yeah.
Absolutely. We'd love to hear your views as well. Your favourite memories of Corto Star, if you were there for any of his major wins, if you were there for any of his losses as well. Just any memories that you had about Corto Star. We'd love to hear them. We'll read them out at the end of this show. But Corto Star, unfortunately, passed away at the age of 15 this week. 5 King Georges, 4 Betfair Chases, 2 Tingle Creeks, 2 Gold Cups, and the only horse to ever retain his gold or regain his Gold Cup crown. Thank you very much, Corto Star, for all the memories that you've given us. You're a wonderful horse, but we cannot hold back on that. We have some previews to do for tomorrow on Channel 4. We're going to start off at Haydock, where the ground will be fairly soft. There's a bit more rain coming overnight. We start off with the 145, the Bet365 handicap over 1 mile, 2 furlongs and 95 yards. Only 6 horses here to go through, Adam. We were talking a little bit beforehand about Hacker maybe being a little bit of a false favourite.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, he's only run twice before, both on the all-weather at Wolverhampton. His win last time out, I don't think the form of it is particularly good. And I also have concerns about him, as you do as well, about him going on softer ground. So I think at 7-4, I think that's plenty short enough. The one I'm going to go with against him, and I actually quite like him, and I think he's overpriced, is Lord Ben Stack, who won his maiden at Haydock last year. He beat the likes of Dissolution and Rocky Rider. He's been highly tried since. I mean, he was 5th behind Elm Park at Newmarket, and last time out, he made the running. He set a really good gallop in Vedante, so fair play for them to giving that a go, but he's not up to that level, and decent handicaps is where his alley is, and I don't think the softer ground will inconvenience him. I remember his trainer saying that they wanted fast ground, but he looked to have a predominant knee action at Newmarket anyway, and I just think that softer ground will really help him. And I know he's top weight and he's got a mark of 92, but on handicap debut, I'm quite interested in him.
It is a tricky race, isn't it? I completely agree with you that Hacker is a bit of a short price on handicap debut. I know that last time out he beat a pretty highly regarded Godolphin horse. So on debut, I don't really think he ran to the best of his abilities. I think he was fairly green on that occasion. And it was at Wolverhampton where turning for home, I think 4 rivals got carried wide and, effectively, that was their race's run. They were outsiders, it has to be said on that. But I'm still not 100% sure about Hacker. He had a very high head carriage last time out. So at 2-1 on soft ground, I'd be willing just to give Hacker a bit of a swerve tomorrow. And I'll be siding with Jamira Glory, who every time he encounters softer ground, including last time out on Good to Soft at Haydock, he won impressively. He's gone up £10 for that effort, which it could be enough to stop him. But being one of the only mudlarks in the field, I don't really see Jamira Glory running a bad race tomorrow. If there's any question marks over the others, then it would be down to the ground. There is more rain scheduled to come overnight at Haydock, but he's won on soft ground before. Every time he's encountered Good to Soft bar 1 at Chester, he's run a really good race. He's gone up £10 as mentioned. I hope he'll still run a good race. It's not the strongest of races, I thought, and there are plenty of question marks about the rest. As mentioned, I'm not 100% signed up to Hacker being well handicapped on handicap debut. On faster ground, maybe more of a betting proposition, but for tomorrow, experiencing soft ground against more experienced rivals, I'd be willing just to sidestep Hacker for the moment until we see a bit more of him. Moving down to Sandown for our first visit of the day now. The 2 o'clock, the Coral Charge, registered as the Sprint Stakes, is a Group 3 over 5 furlongs and 6 yards. It was a fairly fast sprint track today at Sandown. It was good to firm in places, I think, but it's good to firm, good in places now on the sprint track, I should say. We've already lost Mecca's Angel from this race, leaving us with just 11 going to post. And Adam Wardy is fast improving, 3 from 3 at Sandown on the sprint track. and looks to be a pretty exciting sprinter to go to war with.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's telling that they missed. They could have gone for the sprint at Royal Ascot with him, but it tells you that they must really rate him. And, well, I say they rate him and they come in here. He's 3 from 3 at Sandown. And even though his price does look short, I think he is the one to beat. But I get the impression as well that Salt Island is a very decent horse. And he outran his odds last time out in the Commonwealth Cup behind Muhara. And he was given a different ride. He was even closer to the pace. And 2 furlongs out, I thought he was going to play a really big hand in the finish. And I think one of our members of the tipping competition, Anthony Sherratt, who I told him to do it each way, because he doesn't normally do each way selections. I said, do it each way, because if he gets done ahead on the line and he finishes second, you'll still get a good payout. Instead, he got done on the line for third by Anthem Alexander, which meant he got nothing anyway. So I felt quite sorry for him on that occasion. But both of those horses are on the upgrade. They've got less negatives than the rest. I think they're now becoming to the stage where some of these are exposed sprinters. I mean, it sounds hard to say that about Kingsgate Native, but I just think that the 2 3-year-olds have got a lot more to come, and I'm willing to put them in a forecast together, maybe a reverse forecast, because either one of those two could win. Of the rest, I'm going to mention Dutch Masterpiece. He won't run on that ground. It's just, you said 11 runners. There may as well be 10 runners. If Mecca's Angel had run, if the ground had been perfect for her, they wouldn't have seen which way she went, even under a penalty. So, and she should be out soonish. The Sapphire Stakes was mentioned, and when she gets her ground, she will be very hard to beat by any sprinter in this country, even in Europe. I'm going to go with a reverse forecast, but I'm going to go with Wadi over Salt Island, but I wouldn't be surprised if Salt Island beat Wadi.
Sorry. I am agreeing with you with Wadi. This is a horse that I've completely done a U-turn on everything I thought about him last time out. I was very strongly against Wadi last time at Sandown. I didn't overly trust him. I thought he was very inexperienced, a bit green, and just had a few temperament issues. And I have to say, he answered every single question that I had on that occasion, and he did it very, very impressively. In the prelims, he was immaculately behaved. Going out onto the track, he was absolutely fine. During the race, he was as good as ever. So really, I can't hold any faults against Wadi. He just looks like a rapidly improving sprinter in the more than capable hands of John Gosden, and Paul Hannigan gets on so well with him. He's also drawn in stall 4 as well. That's going to be a big positive, because he needs plenty of cover early on in a field of 11, maybe 10 if Dutch Masterpiece does come out. Then Wadi will be getting plenty of cover, and he can just dissect his way into the race slowly but surely. And I think Salt Island will run well. I agree with you on that front, Adam. But Kingsgate Native is going for a hat-trick of seconds in this race after finishing second in it 2 years ago, second in it last year to Extortionist. I think Tickled Pink beat him the first time. So if there's a horse to come second, it'll be Kingsgate Native, but it wouldn't surprise you if he won. He was so impressive last time.
Before we move on, I feel a bit harsh describing Kingsgate Native as an exposed sprinter. When I was saying it, I meant about most of the others in the race, and I feel quite harsh saying it about him, because he's been at this level for a long time, and it's great to see him still at this level. I feel as though I've offended him, and I feel quite bad for that now. Sorry, Kingsgate Native.
Also, another one to throw in, one of the older sprinters is Spirit Courts, who's now trained over in France. But 2 runs ago, we'll forget Ascot. 2 runs ago, he was behind Catcall and Muthmir, only beaten a length. That kind of form coming into this race could be quite highly regarded. Muthmir ran very well at Royal Ascot, and Catcall on his day is a very high-class sprinter over in France. At 14-1, Spirit Courts to be worth an each-way bet. I'd say the each-way bet of the race would be Kingsgate Native at around 10-1 for Robert Cow, Jim Crowley taking the ride. I'd love to see Kingsgate Native run a big race once more, but I'm finding it very hard to see Wadi beaten tomorrow afternoon. It's a shame that Mecca's Angel is out of the lineup. She was going to hold a big part into that race, but obviously not sufficient rain has come, and thankfully Michael Dodds has pulled her out earlier rather than later the evening before. Anyway, back up to Haydock now, where incidentally Mecca's Angel would have got her perfect ground, because it's going to be fairly soft at Haydock tomorrow. For the Bet365 Lancashire Oaks, the 2:15, a Fillies Group 2, over just shy of a mile and a half. There's 11 runners going to post here, Adam. I say 11. We've also lost one from this race. We've got 10, as Arabian Comet is a non-runner. And again, another fairly key part of the race. was meant to be Arabian Coin. But we have got a horse that has won on pretty soft ground before with Lady Tiana for Lucy Ward and Graham Lee teaming up together. She seems to have taken a bit of money tonight and has gone into favouritism ahead of Jordan Princess, who again is another one that could just improve.
Yeah, I mean, Lady Tiana was third last time out behind Miss Marjorie, and when the original entries came out Thursday morning, I was looking at Miss Marjorie as a potential winner, but then with all the rain Haydock have had, she's never raced on soft ground before, so it'd be interesting to see if she lines up or not, and if she does, I think she has a big chance, but I would go with Lady Tiana on the basis that she loves soft ground, and Jordan Princess, I know she's won on soft ground, but that was a long time ago, and she raced on soft ground last year and was really disappointing. So with less question marks about the ground, I think Lady Tiana's the one to beat. One at a bigger price, and a horse that gets further than this and could be worth a couple of quid each way is Dark Crusader, who hasn't been running badly lately on decent ground. And I just think with softer ground here, over a mile and a half, she gets further. If they make use of her and go forward, she'll still be there at the end. With a couple of these having question marks about ground, especially I'd be more worried about Jordan Princess and Miss Marjorie. But if Miss Marjorie doesn't run, I wouldn't be surprised at the same time. But I think Lady Tiana's the one to beat. I will put up Dark Crusader each way as well, which I think she's overpriced.
It's after Lady Tiana won at Doncaster last year, to the joy of our very own Callum Liddell, who I think had quite a bit on her that day. She was probably wrongly labelled as a mudlark because she goes on good ground as well. I think she just handles softer ground better than most. She's got to have a huge chance tomorrow. I'm siding with the horse that you didn't like, Adam, with Jordan Princess, who I was quite looking forward to this season. She was unlucky at the back end of last season. She's a horse that's much better than she's shown us so far. She was beaten by Tigruda in the early part of last season, I think in the Pretty Polly. Sandown, was it Pretty Polly?
Pretty Polly,
it was, yeah. Yeah, a Newmarket. And then that form was apparently bashed and said that's not going to amount to anything. But Jordan Princess has turned out to be quite a nice horse. Nothing of the level of Tigruda, and she won't be. But softer ground, I don't have too many worries. She lost her maiden tag on softer ground. She did run badly on it at Goodwood behind Marsh Daisy. That was very, very soft that day. And it's going to be probably different kind of soft than it was, or than it will be at Haydock tomorrow. What are you going to say?
I think it'd be similar because there's a good amount of rain due. I do like Jordan Princess as a horse, but just I think on better ground. That's the worry I've got.
The thing was, at Goodwood on that day behind Marsh Daisy, it was very, very wet soft.
It could be very wet soft here if there's an inch of rain.
But the thing I'm trying to get to, at Haydock, I think it's going to be probably a deeper surface than it would be at Goodwood.
It has to be, obviously, with the amount of water chipped on it.
I don't have as many worries as you over the ground for Jordan Princess anyway.
Fair enough. If she wins, I'll make me look an idiot. So yeah,
that happens most weeks. Not gonna lie. Yeah. Lady Tiana doesn't look like that, the one they have to beat, but at about 4-1, 9-2 last time I checked. I think I'll side with Jordan Princess. The 235 at Sandown is up next though. Faster ground. On the agenda this time, although there is rain scheduled for the overnight forecast at Sandown, including a couple of thunderstorms as well. So just keep your eye on that if you're having a bet at Sandown tomorrow. The Coral Challenge is up next, a handicap over 1 mile and 14 yards. We've got a pretty competitive field here, all we told, Adam. We've got the likes of Jacob Black, who's got some very good form tying in last time with Bassam, and that form seems to be standing up quite nicely. However, Bassam has his own ground worries to come. He said, Connections and Sidebins Raw have said that he will need rain overnight effectively to run. So with that in mind, would that be a bit of a worry to you regarding towards Bassam?
Well, Bassam's full brother to Far, and Far was he had his issues with Far. When he was right, he was very good horse. I think Bassam's a similar type. He's probably very difficult to train at home and difficult to get right, and running him on fast ground is they're concerned about it, and I'm not surprised. So if the thunderstorms do emerge and it absolutely chucks it down overnight, I think that Bassam would be the one to beat, and I'd be more confident in him. If the ground stays as it is, between those two, I think Jacob Black is overpriced. I mean, there's plenty of pace on in the race, and he can sit handy as well. You've got Mr. Universal go forward. If we potentially can go forward as well. He won last time out at Carlisle. But the selection in the race, I'm going to go with poor old Spark Plug, who fell over last time out. He clipped heels. He clipped heels with Bronze Angel in the Royal Hunt Cup. But before that, he looked a potential group horse in the making at Newbury when he beat the Hunt Cup winner GM Hopkins with a really nice turn of foot. The slight concern is he likes to be held up and he'll have to go through horses. But I don't think that should be an issue with him. But it's a slight concern anyway, because with Sandown, you can struggle from coming for the back of the field. But he's got a turn of foot and he travels well through his races. So I'm not too concerned about that. Others in the race, You're Fired was an interesting one for the Hunt Cup, but you spoke to Graham Lee, didn't you, after the race, and the ground was too quick for him, so I'd be concerned about it if no rain turns up for him. I'm going to forget about Manassa for now, because he travelled really well in the Hunt Cup and then stopped. He didn't find anything, so I'm concerned that there's problems there. Sahafi, he ran okay in the Britannia and was fourth in his group, but Richard Hannon was quoted as saying earlier that he just didn't find as much because they went so quick. And the worry here again is that they're going to go quick and over a 6th mile. Would he prefer a step back to 7 furlongs? So it's a good race, a good handicap. I know you're going to talk about Halation. I'll leave him for you to talk about, but I think he's got a big chance as well on that second behind Balti Boys. Spark Plug for me, even though he's off top weight, I think he is the one to beat.
Yeah, it's an intriguing race that you could throw chances to most of them. There's two that stick out to me. One of them is You're Fired that you mentioned. I spoke to Graham Lee, who doesn't ride tomorrow. Paul Mulrennan, who's been in fantastic form, takes the ride on You're Fired tomorrow. But I spoke to Graham Lee just after the Hunt Cup very quickly. Just asked him if he was okay, because he never travelled a yard at all in the Hunt Cup at Royal Ascot. He just said that the ground was way too fast for him, which tomorrow would be a bit of a worry, to be honest, if that rain doesn't materialise. Overnight, it would help him no end, and he does seem to be a pretty well handicapped horse. I still don't know how he didn't win at York 2 outings ago. He just got there far too late and was making some really good inroads towards the end of the race. So I'm willing to give You're Fired another chance. He looks a thoroughly progressive handicapper around this distance, but I'm going to give the main selection towards Halation, who is a horse that I've done that quite a few times with, but tomorrow seems to have everything in place. There's quite a bit of pace in the race with Mr. Universe, If We Can, Jacob Black, also another one that likes to be very prominent, and there's a few that will be just chasing behind the pace. So I can see him being held up towards the back of the field with the likes, probably Sparkplug won't be too far away. You would imagine Gabriel's Kakar as well out the back of the field. But Halation's a very, very strong travelling horse. He proved that when he was 4th in the Spring Mile. He was the last one off the bridle, and he didn't really quicken that day, which is a little bit of a worry. It could just have a few tendencies to say that maybe he doesn't have enough resolution to go through with a big challenge at the end. But he has been off for 63 days, and I don't want to throw the BO word around, but that's a good amount of time to have off since being second to Balti Boys. He ran a cracking race on that day, and on that occasion he did actually find quite a bit off the bridle. So I'd be willing to give him another chance to Sheen Murphy on board. Around 8 to 1, 10 to 1, I think is a fantastic price, and he is a horse that I still regard much higher than a 96 rated handicapper. And as I mentioned, You're Fired would be the each way selection in the race. But I'm going to keep the faith with Halation. We are rattling through the races this evening on Channel 4. Tomorrow, as always, you can get in touch with us here at On The Other Hoof by tweeting us at On The Other Hoof. We'll read out every question fancy. And if you have a Quarto Star memory that you wanted to share with us, then we'd love to hear it. And we'll read every single tweet within reason out at the end of the show and answer them to the best of our ability. But the next port of call is back up at Haydock for the 250, the Bet365 Old Newton Cup, a handicap over just shy of a mile and a half, the same course and distance of the Lancashire Oaks. 19 runners here, Adam, but we have got a few non-runners already through. Curb Your Enthusiasm is a non-runner. I'm trying to find the other ones that haven't actually been.
was out yesterday, and Soy came out today, which means that
that's the one.
Appetix gets in, and there's 16 at the minute, but I highly doubt there will be 16 there tomorrow. So for this kind of race, it's trying to find the mudlarks, and at the top of the market we have Penhill, that's been very well backed for the Luca Kamani yard. He's been progressive this year, disappointed himself a little bit last time, but a few shrewd judges, talking myself up there, have said that maybe Penhill wants softer ground, judging from his knee action anyway. He seems to hit the ground very hard. Soft ground could just be the making of him, I thought. Yeah, I agree with that as well. I mean, at Ascot, we had that concern, whether he wants softer ground. He got away with it. Newmarket, I don't think Newmarket's his track. He just never travelled, was on and off the bridle, and that pronounced the knee action there. It just tells me that he wants softer ground anyway. I think he's short tomorrow, and I wouldn't say he's the one to beat either. I mean, I think Battersea would be the one to beat, but the problem with Battersea is if they get this rain, he won't run, and they won't even run him just for the outing. They just said point blank they're not going to run. There's a couple that are bigger prices that I know. There's one that we both agree on. I mentioned him second because he's our second selection together, so it's a interesting one. The one I like is a horse that's been waiting for some cut in the ground. Is Farquhar, who won the big handicap at Newmarket at a big price, and he wasn't disgraced behind Agent Murphy on his comeback run at Ascot. And I just think that they've been waiting for a big handicap with him over a mile and a half. I know he got pulled out a couple of weeks ago somewhere. I'm trying to remember where, but I know it was because fast ground was the excuse, and they missed Royal Ascot with him. I think coming here, I don't think the rain will inconvenience him, and I think at 14s, I think he's got a big chance, and I'm going to put him up as the in selection. The one each way that we both like is John Reel, who ran a really good race in the Chester Cup, giving away weight to the whole field, and then wasn't disgraced over 2 miles behind Seymour. The ground is no issue for me. I think soft ground he'll relish it, and the setback in trip, they can make plenty use of him, and he could go very close tomorrow at a big price. So they're the two that I like. Farquhar's the main selection.
Well, with John Reel, with regards towards the ground, he is a winning hurdler on soft ground at stubble, so that's going to be no problems for him whatsoever. And the thing I was sort of looking towards for this kind of race is a horse that's definitely going to stay very well, and that is John Reel. He's got more than enough good form over 2 miles. The form of his last race as well is working out quite nicely, with the likes of Nearly Caught and Seymour running well in the Northumberland Plate last week. So about 33 to 1, I could see John Reel running a really big race, actually. And it's also the first time he doesn't have to give weight to the whole of the field. He gets weight from 3 horses this time, would you believe? But for a mark of 100, I still think there's work there to be done, especially on softer ground. But for the win purposes, and I say win purposes, it is still an each way bet. I'm going to side with Nancy from Nairobi for the Mick Shannon yard. Paddy Pilley's an interesting jockey booking, claiming £7 off the back of Nancy from Nairobi, who he's been riding winners lately. I've knocked him a few times, probably wrongfully as well, but he has been riding quite a few winners. So there's no problems with the £7 claimer on from that point, and he takes a very valuable £7 off as well from a mark of 95, which makes life a lot easier. But you have to mention with Nancy from Nairobi that she has got some pretty good form on softer ground. She was 4th in the Musadora behind Madame Chiang on only her 3rd start, on her 2nd start on very soft ground at Sandown. It looks as if she'd really relish further over a mile and 2, and she came 2nd in quite a good maiden behind Kalisha. Since then, she's only been running on good to firm and good ground. So I can just see that the return to a slightly softer surface, I say slightly, a much softer surface tomorrow at Haydock, could just be in her favour. Off a mark of 95 with the £7 claim as aforementioned, I think Nancy from Nairobi could go quite well. The yards seem to be in decent enough form as well. So at 20 to 1, I think you could find worse outsiders than Nancy from Nairobi. It's just unlucky, Adam, that we both agree on John Reel at a big price. That's really put the mockers on him.
Oh, really? I hope not.
Yeah,
anyway.
It's mostly because you fancy him, but.
Oh, great. So I how much of a penalty do I give him? Like a 2 stone penalty, and then you just give him £3 or £4? So...
Yeah, I take 5 off.
You take 5 off, and then I go and compound that by putting 2 stone extra on his back. So yeah. Great.
Something like that anyway. Back down to Sandown before we start domestic here. More listed action with the Coral Distaff, a mile and 14 yards the trip. 12 horses going to post here, 1 non-runner with Tarka, which leaves us with just 11, and two exciting horses at the top of the market for different reasons. Jellicle Ball hasn't really delivered on what she promised at the last year and the early part of this season. And Black Cherry, who was wickedly impressive in a handicap over course and distance last time at Sandown.
Yeah, I can't really describe Jellicle Ball as exciting anymore. I describe her now as a disappointment. Yes, she had excuses in the beginnings because she was in season. And Goodwood, she was really disappointing. And the run in the Sandringham, yes, it was an okay run, but I thought if she was meant to be the group horse that they thought she was and to win classics, obviously she couldn't win a classic after the timings of the Guineas and etc. She should have been winning the Sandringham. Yeah, I know Sailor won it as well, but it's just she's not gone on, and I've been really disappointed by her. And I just think that Black Cherry in this field, I think she's 5 to 2 is a good price about her. And you've been raving about her since her maiden win at Goodwood, and she was so impressive over course and distance. And a repeat of that performance, I don't see any of these troubling her. Montalcino, the drop back in trip, is a slight concern. I thought she improved going up in trip behind Crystal Spedster, but I don't know. It's these fillies. I don't think most of these will pack a punch, but Black Cherry's improving, going the right way, and 5-2 I think is a fair price about her.
I really do like Black Cherry. I liked her last time in handicap company. I think she's off a mark of 90 on that occasion. I expected her to go well, but I didn't expect her to win on the bridle by 5 lengths. That was something I didn't quite see coming. But the reason I picked her out at Goodwood is that she won very nicely in a maiden. That was off a mark of 84. I should say at Sandown last time. But she won nicely in the maiden at Goodwood, but she was unbalanced the whole way. She hated the track. She hung across to the near side. It just shows that she's got quite a bit of class about her to win in that style when absolutely hating everything that was going on. Tomorrow, stepping up into a big race for the first time into listed company. I don't think it's the strongest of listed races either, with Jellicle Ball being, as you put it, probably a disappointment this season. She hasn't gone on to establish what we thought of her in the early season. It'll be interesting to see how she goes, really. I think it was William Buick after the 1,000 guineas said that the ground was too fast for her and she just couldn't act on it, which would be a fairly valid excuse for last time as well. She ran well in the Sandringham, but at the end of the day, that was another handicap off a much higher mark than Black Cherry won her handicap off. Keep that in mind. But Jellicle Ball now has a few questions to answer rather than being an exciting horse to go to war with this season. So for that reason, you'd have to be against Jellicle Ball at 3-1, and that does leave Black Cherry 5-2 at the head of the market to be probably the horse that I'm most looking forward to seeing tomorrow anyway, especially after last time out victory. I think stepping up into listed class, especially into this race, I think she's definitely the one to beat, and I think she will be a very tough nut to crack for Richard Hughes and Richard Hannon. And Hughes was amongst the winners today as well as Sandown, so he's a guy in form with mixed reactions to some. The 3:45 is at Sandown. It's the last race that we're going to be covering. However, it is the big race of the day, the Coral Eclipse, Group 1 over 1 mile, 2 furlongs and 7 yards. And Mukadram won this last year. Only 5 runners this time around, Adam. It was a pretty decent race last year, in all truth, really. And we've got the Derby winner, as mentioned at the top of the show, turning up here with Golden Horn. But he's taken on by the Grey Gatsby, who was very unlucky at Royal Ascot in the Prince of Wales's, and Cougar Mountain, who again ran a pretty decent race behind Solo in the Queen Anne.
Yeah, I mean, last year's race, I'll just talk about that quickly. On paper, it was a good race, and then it turned into one of the most bizarre Group 1s I think I've ever seen. If you'd have told me before the race that pacemakers were going to be, well, I say pacemakers, Mukadram and Trading Leather like to be ridden forward, but the pacemaker finishing third, I think I remember we watched the race, and the jockey on somewhat came back in laughing because they couldn't believe that they stole as much as a mark as they did. Now, there will be no worries about that tomorrow because looking at the race, there's a lack of pace. I mean, there was talk earlier about Golden Horn potentially having to make the running, and I don't see it as a concern. The concern I would have at that price was at the start in the Derby, the first 100 yards, he threw his head around and would refuse to settle, but then Frankie got a hold of him, managed to settle him, and he was a very impressive Derby winner. And coming back to 10 furlongs, I don't think will be a concern to him, and I do think getting the weight, he can beat the older horses at this stage. The Grey Gatsby, he should have won last time at Royal Ascot. I'm not going to sit here and criticise Jamie Spencer because he was kept in by race riding from Frankie Dettori on Western Hymn. The concern with me about the Grey Gatsby is, does he want a break between his races? I seem to think that he tends to put a lot into his races, and I just think a hard race at Royal Ascot coming here so soon could be a concern. And also, I think they've been forced to run here at the fact there's only 5 runners. If there were more horses in this race, potentially he wouldn't be here. If there's value to chase Golden Horn home, I think Western Hymn at 20 is each way. It's a cracking bet because he's 3 from 3 at Sandown. I know they've said there's concerns about the ground, but he's run well on good to firm ground. He's run over course and distance on good to firm when he beat Arab Spring and was third at Royal Ascot behind Free Eagle and the Grey Gatsby. And at the prices there, I'd rather back him each way than the Grey Gatsby or Cougar Mountain, say, to beat Golden Horn. Cougar Mountain is an interesting horse going up in trip, and he looks outpaced at the start of the Queen Anne, and then was staying on really eye-catchingly towards the end. And he's got first-time blinkers fitted, which is an interesting move to go with because I don't think he's ungenuine.
No,
and I think
I just wanted to put a point. I saw someone, I can't remember who it was, I apologise, say on Twitter at the start of the week that Cougar Mountain will be first time blinkered in the Eclipse. Could it be possible that they want to try and press the pace with Cougar Mountain? I know he's stepping up in trip, but he seemed as if he was screaming out for a mile and two in the Queen Anne when staying on all too late.
Potentially, but I don't see them going off too quick. I don't see him as the hare saying.
No, but the thing is, he's got enough tactical speed. If he could settle on the front end, then he could just win it from the front.
He is a very good horse, I will say that, because this time last year he was running over 5-6 furlongs, 2 lengths off Soul Power in an Unthorpe, and here he is in an Eclipse. I think he's a very talented horse. But tomorrow I'm concerned about with the fact that the first time blinkers. I mean, he could easily go forward and win, but I wouldn't want to be touching him. If there's a bet in the race, I'm going to put Western Him up each way, just because 20-1 is a silly price about a horse who's 3 from 3 at Sandown, and his run last time out, I think he's overpriced compared with the Grey Gatsby anyway. I think Golden Horn will win before potentially going on to the King George. I think Anthony Oppenheimer was quoted as saying that the King George would be the next port of call after tomorrow. So, yeah, I think Golden Horn will win. Western Him will chase him home.
Yeah, I think you're having a fairly hard time to try and say that Golden Horn wouldn't win this. He looks by far the best of these in the race, and he gets a lot of weight from everything else. The one thing I will say, Tullius is not 100-1 shot. He's the horse that he always comes in as an outsider. I'm not saying to have a good bet. I'm just saying for maybe a 50p each way, just for a bit of interest in the race. 100-1 is a bit insulting to Tullius. He's always the horse that he comes into the race as a complete outsider. He's got no chance to win it at all, but he always seems to outrun his odds. He may not even come second at the end of the day, but if the Grey Gatsby has an off day, Cougar Mountain's still got a few questions to answer for me. Western Him, I hope he stays in, and I hope he does run, just to give that each way perspective. But Western Him, for me, I'm not 100% with Western Him. And if Tullius is on one of his going days, and that rain does come just to soften up the ground a little bit, just to take the sting out of the ground for Tullius, then 100-1 is a little bit big about him and a little bit offensive. I'm not saying he should be in there mixing it with the others. He should be the outsider of the field. But 100-1 is just a bit too big for me. Saying that, Golden Horn does look something very, very good for John Gosden, who has 2 candidates in the race with Western Him and Golden Horn. But the Derby winner does look like the one they will have to beat, and I can't see anything beating Golden Horn tomorrow. If it does turn into a tactical affair, I still would fancy Golden Horn to have more than enough speed to get past anything in this race. I mean, 10 furlongs looks to be his ideal trip. I think we can both agree on that, right?
Yeah, although he wasn't stopping at the end of the Derby. It took an age for him to pull up as well, so 1.5 miles is no barrier to him. Before we go on, I'm going to mention price-wise selections. Master Carpenter in the handicap along with Tournament. Master Carpenter wants off the ground, so that's taking a gamble with him. Apteryx and John Reel in the Old Newton Cup, and Cougar Mountain in the, what was that you just said? And Cougar Mountain in the Eclipse.
Nothing.
You said nothing. Oh.
Nothing. I will just say one thing. With Haydock, we have been saying that it's softer ground, and it is officially on the softer side at the moment. There is more rain forecast for tonight, so if you're having a bet at Haydock, I would advise that you have it tomorrow morning when we know the state of affairs and what the ground is officially going to be. We have just had a message from Phil Thompson, who works for Timeform, saying the ground might not be too soft tomorrow, as David Johnson, the Timeform flat editor, has just tweeted the times at Haydock today, and they were not slow. They were pretty good times, to be honest. So just keep an eye on that. I still, with the rain coming, I still would say that it would be on the softer side of good.
I think there's a fair amount due as well. Just from, I was looking at weather updates earlier, and I was looking at a couple of days ago, and the whole of Merseyside and Runcorn, Merseyside is not associated with Runcorn, by the way, Luke, was awash with green, yellow, and blue, which suggests a load of rain. And the yellow parts were up towards the northeast of that. So just be careful with Haydock. That's the advice. But,
I'm just looking at the weather for tomorrow at Haydock overnight from 1 a.m. through to 7 a.m. It looks as if there's going to be some rain at Haydock. So just keep an eye on that for the morning is all we're saying. It could get a little bit messy there. But thank you very much for that update, Phil. Only a few questions in today. No Corto Star memories as well, which is very disappointing for you guys. We could always do better than that. But I think we gave enough memories. I think we used up everyone's memories, to be fair, at the start of the show. But one thing does remain. Kai Wills has the first question in, saying about Wadi, who we both agreed on is the most likely winner of the sprint at Sandown. He says it looks like a serious tool.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's just that I think that if you want to do a reverse forecast, Salt Island could easily be in there. As you say that we don't have any Corto memories, you can always count on KJ to pop up with one.
We'll get to you, KJ. You wait in line. I'd say Wadi. I wouldn't say good thing, because Sandown sprints can be very messy, as we found out today with the likes of Sophie Aitken, who found trouble in, I think,
he found trouble, but I don't think he'd have won anyway. He just didn't look happy on the ground. So
I agree with that. I think he's going to be a soft ground horse. He wasn't striding out at all at the end of the race. A lot of people could slate Ryan Moore, and just after the race, I wasn't overly happy with the ride. But looking back on it, I don't think he'd won anyway on that front. Jeff Handley got Sahafi in singles patents lucky 31s at Sandown. I think Jeff fancies Sahafi. Want my money back after Royal Ascot. 6-1 seems a cracking price. Did you say you fancy Sahafi at all?
No, I'm more concerned about the stiff mile for him and the amount of pace on. Just the Ascot's a stiff mile as well. With Richard Hannon's comments about the effort not being there when he went for him, there wasn't as much there as expected. I just think he may even want us drop back to 7 furlongs to be at his most effective. He could easily go win tomorrow, but I'd rather him go prove it tomorrow before I'd want to back him in future races.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And then Jeff has sent in a few other his selections for tomorrow. It's all at Sandown as well. Use Your Filbert for Robert Cow is unexposed. Wadi and Salt Island in. I'm going to say reverse forecast. He hasn't said that in particular, so apologies if you didn't mean that. Sahafi, Black Cherry, well done, and Thames Night, all at Sandown. So good luck with those, Jeff. And then we've got the one Corto memory in from KJ, saying many fond Corto memories, but his amazing jump in that King George has to be the one defining moment, all of his pure quality.
That's got to be the last fence in either 09 or 2011. Although that is one little thing I forgot about Corto. Them last fence mistakes didn't half have your heart in your mouth. 06 King George, the 07 Aeon Chase, King George, 8, some of them, and the 07 Gold Cup as well. It's sort of I think Mike Cattermole did the commentary of the 07 Gold Cup. Hold your breath as you came to the last. It wasn't his worst mistake, but he still ploughed through it.
In 07 Aeon?
Yeah, Denman Chase. He beat Lammy, giving him £10. He came to the last and he walked through it. Yeah.
I was thinking of Masterminded. He did that.
And he also did the same in the Game Spirit a couple of years later. That mistake was worse than Corso, so he literally came to a standstill.
Yeah.
But it showed.
Actually, sorry, just to go off on a tangent, I was standing right next to that fence when Masterminded made that mistake, and I tell you what, Ruby Walsh was a lucky so-and-so that he came straight down, because otherwise he was falling for about 11 feet in the air.
Yeah, he was lucky. Stay on there.
One last question from Kai Wills. Again, thoughts on Ryan Moore getting beaten a lot of fancied runners. I just want to say one thing about that. I mean, Ryan Moore is a very, very good jockey.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, he's only human. He's going to get beat on a few horses. With regards to today, Massamar should never have been 7-2.
Yeah.
Sophie Aitken, we already said, didn't really go on the ground. That's fine. Providence, it was a very tactical affair, and she didn't have the pace. Sorry.
I don't think she was good enough either.
No, she wasn't good enough.
I think big field handicaps would be more her interesting bag. I mean, she ran a good race at Royal Ascot in the Wolverton, so I'd be interested if she goes for another one of those somewhere along the line. Anyway,
the point I was trying to make with Ryan Moore, he had obviously 10 winners at Royal Ascot, which was absolutely fantastic. But now people are beginning to think that anything he rides is going to be a winner. So the horses are being overbet with the likes, probably the perfect example, we'll say. That's the word. Mm. The best example to use would be Massamar today. He shouldn't have been a 7-4 shot. He hasn't won in, is it 2 years now, Massamar? And he was drawn badly on the sprint course at Sandown, which it wouldn't help him at all. At 7-2, I don't think he should have been favoured whatsoever, and he was very much overbet with Ryan Moore on board.
Mm. Yeah, I agree with all that. Yeah,
Sorry.
Jeff's corrected me. I'm really sorry. It is Barry Hills. Beg your pardon. I don't know where
Yeah.
Richard Hanning came into my head there. I don't know why. Just a halfie. So
That's Jeff correcting you.
yeah.
That's all the questions that we have for tonight. The only thing remaining is nap time. I know mine didn't win last week. How did yours get on?
It didn't win. It never does. I've forgotten what I even napped last week. That's how bad it was. I wrote it in the thing earlier, and it was a bad nap. Callum's won, so he's back in profit. Well, he was in profit anyway. Yeah,
Did Callum nap?
Cody Bear.
Oh yeah, Cody Bear. Yeah. Right, Adam, what's your nap for tomorrow?
My nap tomorrow. I'm going to put up I'm going to do the forecast. I'm not going to do reverse forecast. I'm going to just do the straight forecast with Guardian Salt Island in the sprint.
It's very rarely we bring out a forecast for a nap. It has come off before with Callum Medell napping Uncle Junior and Balthazar King. Yeah, that was it. I'm going to stay a little bit more pathetic and just nap one horse. I'm napping Black Cherry at Sandown in the 3:10, the Coral Distaff. I think 5-2. I think she's going to prove to be by far the best horse in the race. She looked so classy last time out, albeit winning off a mark of 84. But she looked like she could be a very, very good horse when winning over course and distance last time out. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, Adam.
No problems.
When some part-timers from Timeform can be wanted to get involved.
Oh, that's mean.
He won't watch. He won't watch. It's fine. He won't watch.
He will. Messages afterwards.
Thank you for sharing your Corso memories and your expert analysis as always for tomorrow.
I wouldn't call it expert analysis, but
I'm trying to be nice to you when you're talking it down. But anyway, we'll see you next week anyway. What racing have we got next week?
We've got 3 days of Newmarket. July next Saturday. We may even be on Wednesday, Thursday.
We've also got the John Smith's Cup as well, where Lightning Spear hopefully goes to post anyway. But thank you everyone for joining us this evening and getting in on what was a different show, with reminiscing about Corte Star's fantastic career, some previews of tomorrow's racing, which promises to be a very good day. We hope Golden Horn can confirm the ability that he showed in the Epsom Derby when beating Jack Hobbs. And thank you for spending time with us to talk about the late Corte Star. Until next week, here on The Other Hoof, have a good week and goodbye.